Anaparthi from PhD 02 batch in the area of decision sciences and operations management. In this video, I will take you through my thesis, Twin Transition Behavioral Pathways to Achieve Sustainability Objectives with Advanced Technologies. To understand the future of global business, we must first confront the defining challenge of 21st century. It is a concept that sits at the core of my research. We call it the twin transition. This is not just a buzzword. It is a paradigm shift that demands simultaneous progress in two critical areas, digital transformation and sustainability. On one hand, we have the urgent need for sustainability. On the other, we have the explosive potential of advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data analytics, etc. These are critical enablers. They have the power to help companies optimize resources, enhance supply chain transparency, and achieve circularity. Essentially, these technologies promise to move corporate sustainability from abstract commitments on paper to measurable operational reality on the factory floor. However, despite this immense potential, we face a problem. A significant adoption paradox exists. While these advanced technologies offer clear benefits for achieving sustainable development goals, their actual adoption remains a bottleneck. Why is this happening? Existing explanations in the academic and business world almost always focus on what we call techno-economic barriers. You will hear arguments like the implementation costs are too high, the return on investment is uncertain, or we face shortage of skilled workers. While these explanations are valid, my research argues that they are fundamentally incomplete. They treat the corporations as a machine, ignoring the most critical variable in the equation, the human element. Investment decisions are not made by algorithms or spreadsheets. They are made by managers and executives. These are individuals operating within a complex web of organizational pressures, personal values, and cognitive biases. My thesis addresses this black box or behavioral time box. The core argument I present is simple yet profound. If we rely solely on academic arguments without understanding the psychological drivers of the people in charge, our policies to drive the twin transition will fail. We need to move beyond what companies are buying to why people inside them decided to buy it. To excavate these psychological drivers, I employed a rigorous multi-stage investigation. First, I conducted a systematic literature review. We analyzed 203 peer-reviewed high-quality articles to map the intellectual landscape. This review confirmed a glaring lack of focus on the behavioral psychology of the managers. It's also identified critical gaps regarding SMEs and the role of ethical considerations. Following this, I conducted two major global empirical studies involving over 300 business professionals. Study 1 compared SMEs versus large enterprises to see if the decision pathways differ by firm size. In study 2, I tested a comprehensive global model that included top-down influence like CEO inclination and government policies. So, what did we find? The research used integrated behavioral models combining the theory of planned behavior and value belief norm theory to reveal severe critical insights. The most important finding is this. The logic of adoption is not universal. It is entirely contingent on the size of the firm. We essentially found two psychological worlds. First, let's look at SMEs. For smaller firms, we found a logic of pragmatism. Their decisions are driven more solely by what we call perceived behavioral control. This essentially means capability. The manager asks, do we have the tangible resources? Do we have the technical capability? If the answer is yes, they act. It is parsimonious capability-driven model. Personal attitude plays a very minor role. For large enterprises, however, operation is primarily on the dual logic. For them, it isn't just about capability. Their decisions are driven by perceived behavioral control and a significant sense of moral obligation. Why the difference? Large firms operate in a highly complex stakeholder environment. They are watched by the public, by stakeholders, and by regulators. For them, the pressure of conscience is structurally activated. Crucially, across the broad for both SMEs as well as large firms, we found a direct capability to action pathway. A firm perceived control over the situation was a more potent predictor of actual behavior than their intention itself. Perhaps one of the most intriguing findings of this research was regarding government policy. We analyzed the influence of regulation. Conventional wisdom suggests that strong government policy should motivate better personal attitudes towards sustainability. My data suggests the opposite. We discovered a significant crowding out effect. Strong government policy was found to crowd out the influence of managers' personal attitude. Here is what that means. Yeah? When a powerful external regulator step in, intrinsic motivation is displaced. The decision of logic shifts from being value-driven, I want to do this, to purely instrumentally driven, I have to do this. This confirms motivation crowding theory in a corporate context. It suggests that while regulation forces compliance, it might actually diminish the internal passion or personal commitment of the manager. So this is very tricky because once the government policy is taken away or the subsidies provided by the government are taken away, managers might stop taking the right decisions. Furthermore, we found out that contextual factors like CEO inclination and government policy function as unambiguous top-down instrumental signals. They exert a direct powerful command over the intention to adapt. So, what does this mean for practice as well as for policy? For policymakers, there must be a fundamental shift. We need to move from persuasion-based strategies to empowerment-based interventions. Since perceived behavioral control or capability is the main driver, policies shouldn't just tell companies why to change. They must give them the tools to change. We need smart regulations. This means providing tangible support mechanism, specifically access to finance and technical expertises. We also need targeted strategies. For SMEs, focus on empowerment. Give them simplified implementation roadmaps. For large enterprises, appeal to their dual logic, leverage the institutionalized sense of moral obligation along their structural capacity. And for corporate leaders, specifically CEOs, you are a driving force. Your sustained visible support is essential. It signals strategic importance to your managers, clearing the path for adoption. In conclusion, this thesis contributes to academic theory by establishing firm size as a critical behavioral contingency. The psychological rules change depending on how big the company is. It challenges the direct application of traditional behavioral theories, showing that personal attitudes often diminish in high-stakes decisions in the context of adopting advanced technologies for achieving the sustainability objectives. This research was conducted under the invaluable guidance of my Research Advisory Committee. I am deeply grateful to the RAC Chair, Professor Rupesh Kumar Pati, and committee members, Professor Siddhartha S. Padi and Professor K.U. Purani for their mentorship. I also extend my sincere thanks to Professor Soumya Roy, Chair of the TEC, and External Examiner, Professor Karuna Jain, for their critical review. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the support of my PhD PT office colleagues, Jijina, Jumana, Amrita, Kiran, and Rahman, who are always there to support me for any kind of queries at any point of time. Thank you for listening.